Ladies and gentlemen, taking on the swamp, please welcome former Department of Defense Chief of Staff, Kash Patel, senior writer for American Greatness, Julie Kelly, producer and director at AMDC Films, Amanda Milius, and your moderator, host of Human Events Daily, Jack Posobiec.
Shall we?
All right. Good morning, CPAC. Good morning, National Harbor. Good morning, Patriots. You know, it's early in the morning, but that's okay, because as Amanda said backstage, the clip doesn't know what time it is, so eventually at some point we'll be watching back later on this, but it's amazing to see everybody here. It's amazing to see everyone's smiling faces, and Amanda. And it's great to see so many people here this morning, but I always say this when I speak at CPACs, I almost wish we didn't have to be here. You know what I mean? Because I wish we could just be living our lives. I wish we could be raising our families, being with our kids, going to church, Easter's coming up. I wish that we could be focusing on those things. But unfortunately, we are dealt with a situation in which we were all born into. We were born into a situation where we have an out-of-control government, an out-of-control administrative state, an out-of-control swamp, which we are currently within smelling distance of right now. I don't know if you guys smell that wafting over. No, that's not East Palestine, that's Washington, D.C. So I just wanted to kind of go down the line here and just top line, if you could pick, your one main priority, and we'll just kind of go in order as we're sitting here, for taking on the deep state, taking on the swamp, because I want to empower not just the politicians, not just the lawmakers, but the people, right? Because CPAC is all about power to the people. So Kash Patel, what can people do to get active in this fight?
Besides buy your book.
Besides watch Plot Against the President.
Other than,
listen to Pozo and Julie. So this is an amazing panel.
Get that out of the way.
And,
buy the books, listen to the podcast.
The deep state is something that, like Jack was saying, not only did we wish we didn't have to do this. I wish we didn't have to address a deep state. Yeah. That's something that you're talking about in like tyrannical dictatorships. But in 2023 America, you have a two-tier system of justice that was created by the very people that were supposed to serve you and create an equal tier system of justice. I mean, Julie is the expert on how the January 6th defendants have been mistreated and how their due process rights have been violated. So the way that I think you crack the deep state is personnel. And it's not necessarily a fault of the last Trump administration, because what did they do? They were never in politics. They came in and said, okay, you guys have been government 15, 20 years. We're supposed to be able to rely on you for being, whether it's Republican or Democrat, to do the national security mission, to do the America First mission, to put the interests of Americans first. And some of those people, a lot of them, unfortunately, we just got it wrong. So I think the bench, I want to highlight this. The bench exists. The people are there for every agency and department. And I got so motivated behind it that I wrote a book called Government Gangsters, which the deep state is actually trying to prevent the release of that manuscript. But we're going to take them to court. It'll hopefully be out this spring. And you got to educate everyone. I list every single government gangster by agency and department. But the one thing Donald Trump taught me was don't just highlight the problem. What's the solution? How do we fix the FBI, DOJ, and the swamp and every other agency? And it starts with personnel, and it ends with congressional oversight. And hopefully that's something that's ramping up.
And that means getting the right people in office who understand exactly what Kash is talking about. I want to see congressional candidates that have your book with notes and highlights and underlines and dog ears and everything. Some people
Not
think
with the RNC we have now.
We'll talk about that. Julie Kelly, though, and by the way, congratulations to Julie Kelly because of your yeoman's work on the Jan 6 issue. Seriously, give it up for her. And I want people to understand that in the dark days, in Jan 7th, Jan 8th, Jan 9th, I'll tell you something. Everybody knows I'm on Twitter constantly. I didn't even tweet those days because I didn't know what was going on. I went 3 days without tweeting.
Now that is a national emergency.
That's a national emergency right there. We didn't know what was happening. The censorship hammer was coming down. People were getting arrested left and right. And there was one person that stood up and said, what's going on is wrong, and that was Julie Kelly. Yes. And just this week, Rasmussen just dropped a new poll that said 61%, not of Republicans, but of all voters believe that January 6th was likely provoked and instigated by federal agents. 61%. Julie, how did you do it?
Well, first of all, Jack has been a friend of mine since the very beginning, even before January 6th, and I would not have any sort of platform on Twitter to share my work without you. So I want to thank you so much for your friendship for years. Also, I would not be able to write about January 6th or cover it if it wasn't for Following Cash, Devin Nunes, and a small team of courageous warriors who took on not just the swamp in the Democratic Party, but 90% of the Republicans to uncover the biggest scandal in American history, which was Russiagate. And what they tried to do and are still trying, is to destroy them. But because I had a basis of covering that, it helped with my learning curve on what to cover for January 6th. And then, of course, the plot against the president, the documentary that Amanda, if you haven't watched it, please watch it, because these are the people who saw this first and fought it first. But unfortunately, what started in 2016 with Crossfire Hurricane has only accelerated. And when the DOJ decided an FBI to go after Donald Trump, his closest campaign associates, people like Carter Page, and everyone was like, who cares about Carter Page? Who cares about Paul Manafort? Who cares about Trump or his family? It was literally, 5 years later, less than 5, that they took that weaponization and they aimed it at half of the country, because no one paid a price. No one still has paid a price for Russiagate. And so they took their cues, they've accelerated the national security state, the intelligence apparatus, and more importantly, law enforcement against Americans. We now have nearly 1,000 people who've been charged related to their involvement in January 6th, criminal charges that are mostly low-level misdemeanors that nonetheless have destroyed their lives, ruined their families, bankrupted them, and alienated them from their own communities because they are considered domestic terrorists. That number will double, according to Matthew Graves, the DC U.S. attorney, who is handling all of the prosecutions. Now think about this, you're a former prosecutor. They want 2,000 total arrests. Since when do you put a number on an investigation? But they're so flagrant, brazen about it, and the real villains here are the judges on the DC District Court. None of this happens without the judicial imprimatur, and we're talking Trump-appointed lawyers, Obama, Clinton, down to Reagan, if you can believe it. They've acted as nothing more than a rubber stamp. This is a huge, massive travesty of justice. It's hard to unwind, but to Jack's point, the poll that came out this week, when you have 61% of Americans who believe that feds were involved, which of course we know that they were, but also 80% of Americans want the January 6th, the secret tapes, the unreleased, unseen videos released to the public. Little victories. We'll take little victories. So thank you all, and thanks, Jack, for the question.
Okay, so Amanda, now we were joking, I think, before we came on the panel today.
Were we?
We were talking. Was it a joke or was it serious? I don't know. We were guessing which one of us would say something that gets this panel canceled first.
And we bet, we have
bet
a
it was
bet.
Definitely Amanda.
Yeah.
Definitely Amanda.
No doubt.
So
I'm ready.
When it comes to this, so Amanda, you had a tweet recently.
Oh, no.
Where you said, if I can, and I'll paraphrase.
I'm playing a character.
That when Donald J. Trump is reelected President of the United States in 2024, right? And that's the old Reagan line about recession, depression, recovery. That the first thing that the personnel should be made to do when they're appointed in the administration is walk into one of these federal bureaucracies and then just fire every single person in the room to their face.
Yes. Like I specifically said.
I have a list, by the way.
It has to be like a gang where you have to prove that you'll do it. So you can't get to choose what agency or what. You just have to walk into a room full of other human beings,
Yes.
all bureaucrats, and deliver them their pink slips, which will be done by Schedule F.
Yes.
Which
This is with Schedule F.
I talk about Schedule F all the time. I'm like a total nerd, but it is the one way that our administration finally figured out how to fire entrenched bureaucrats. Because as both of you guys have said, personnel is the problem. That's why we have the corruption at DOJ. That's why we have the corruption in every single agency down to the FEC, like the SEC, everything down to the EPA. I mean, there is no such thing as a non-corrupt agency. I mean, what?
Wait, but Amanda, the EPA,
Energy came out with the reality on COVID. But yeah, so that's the idea. So okay, if there is the next Trump administration, what you have to do when you come in is you fire an entire room full of bureaucrats. And then if you can actually fire enough people that you close a bureau, everyone is awarded with a single tattoo on their face.
Like the guys down in El Salvador.
Yeah, like MS-13.
And so everyone, when you
El
see somebody coming with like several, you're like, oh my God. Like,
You're gonna have to get a whole barrel full of ink when I walk in because I'm
that's what you
I'm
said.
gonna walk in. I'm gonna walk in. I'm like, why do we have 16 intel agencies? This one's gone. This one's gone. This one's
No,
gone.
I mean, it's true. And all I got when I was in State Department for basically ridding us of the duplicative bureau that I was put in charge of as the head political, it's gone now. I'm like the only person that was willing to kill my own fiefdom. And for that, I got the threat of being fired every week.
Yes.
And my boss and I would go through
remember
the
the phone
resumes.
calls.
And yeah, I was like, they're going to try and fire me again. But yeah, I mean, we need to change that. Personnel is policy, and I think we all know now that personnel is the most important thing in an administration, and also a strong Congress. I'm going to get off this hobby horse in a second, but on the administrative state, none of this would be possible if Congress did its job.
Yes.
It's supposed to be the one that writes laws and legislates, but what we have is law by administration. And that's not an accident. The administrative state was built on purpose, which means it can be unbuilt on purpose. That's the thing that I want to tell conservatives, because they frequently act like it's this sort of mysterious growth of DC that just happened over the years.
I've always said that whenever and you guys will appreciate this, Cash, for sure, is that when you're walking around, and if you've ever done any work in the federal government, they have this phrase called the interagency. And whenever someone invokes the interagency, it's like, and I'm Catholic, so it's like invoking the Pope. The interagency, the interagency, yes. The interagency said, the interagency consensus, on Russia, on Ukraine, on China, on the laptop, on Russia, on everything. The interagency, God bless the interagency, order pro nobis.
What is it? But yeah.
You never know what it is, but it is the thing that is
And
actually
it's usually
considered in charge.
junior people. That's the other funny thing, it's never actually like, the Secretary of State or like the Secretary of Defense or like anything like that. It's usually just like these minions' careers being thrown into NSC, making these decisions. I mean, Cash would certainly know.
Well, people like Eric Charamella, people like Alexander Vindman, people like Alexander Vindman's brother, who, by the way, excuse me, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who, by the way, I don't know if you caught Human Events yesterday, we dropped a ton of receipts on Vindman. I got his entire pitch deck where Vindman and his brother have been going to the government of, you guessed it, Ukraine, shaking them down for up to $12 million in defense contracts because he started the war and now he's trying to profit off of the very same war that he started after a perfect phone call.
A perfect phone call.
That's the perfect example of guys, and whistleblowers are something that we need to talk about because there's a difference between fake whistleblowers, Charmella and the Vindmans and everybody else, who stood up a fraudulent impeachment and put this country through 2 episodes of turmoil, which was totally unnecessary, except the deep state wanted it to happen. The administrative state and the heads of these agencies, the Rod Rosensteins, the Bill Barrs, the Chris Wrays, the Haspels, the Espers of the world, wanted this to happen. They wanted this to happen against Donald Trump. And like what always happens is we fight for the truth, it gets put out there, y'all listen, and then they move on to their next false narrative. But right now we have a critical movement in Congress that is another key piece of defeating the administrative state. We have brave whistleblowers from the FBI who are coming out and now showing us how the FBI is targeting based on political orientation
We need more.
and religious faith. Two things the Attorney General was asked about this past week under oath, and he basically lied when he said we don't do that, yet you have an FBI intelligence report that was rescinded by Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, because they literally took targeting warrant applications against people who went to church. This is the most fundamental violation of free speech. What you all need to do is get out there and help Congress understand the importance of these whistleblowers, and they must be protected. Under the prior administration, even though Charmella and Vindman and company were basically lying the entire time, they still receive whistleblower protection status. You know who got fired? The latest slew of FBI whistleblowers, Kyle Serafin, Steve Friend, and a couple of other folks who just have done amazing work, and we have to stand for it.
One thing, and I know we've talked about this before, but I'd love to see, whatever the organ is, whether it's the ACU or CPAC or RNC, whatever, a whistleblower fund
It's not
that's
gonna be the
actually able to be set up to help these people who come out and
Help them,
from these agencies. And by the way, not just in the agencies, but I'm also talking about the people that come forward to a good friend of mine, Mr. James O'Keefe. Whether you're in pharma or media or the entertainment complex or wherever you are, we need to set up a fund for patriot whistleblowers so that they can be taken care of. Because look, and I say this as a prior intelligence officer myself, who was part of the swamp, right? That when you're in there, you see this stuff going on. When Benghazi was going on, I remember, I said, this guy is lying. This president is just going on TV lying. We could see the videos, we could see everything. This is a terrorist attack, obviously. And he just went up and lied because there was an election in 6 weeks. Well, but when you start thinking about it, is, well, what about my family? What about the fact that I've got 5 years in, I've got 7 years in, I'm working towards my pension, I'm working towards this, and all that money really plays a role. And so these brave, courageous people that are coming forward realize that they're throwing that all away. They're throwing away their name, they're throwing away their reputation, they're throwing away not only their money, but their promise of future stability, economic stability for their families and for their kids. That's scary.
Potential prosecution.
And
I
yeah,
mean,
not even
Absolutely.
opening themselves up
because
to all that.
they, as we've seen with this DOJ, they will make up a charge.
They'll General Flynn you.
They will weaponize a statute
Show me
like
the man,
obstruction,
and I'll show you the crime.
obstruction of an official proceeding, which was a post-Enron felony that dealt with tampering with evidence that this DOJ has bastardized and now used to criminalize political dissent, which sounds okay, except it's a 20-year felony, and this DOJ has charged more than 300 January 6 defendants with this to leverage either plea deals or throw them in prison for years if they take a plea or, so, I mean, they can make up any law, any charge, and I'm sure this is what the whistleblowers are afraid of, justifiably so.
Anybody should be. I mean, we can see what they're doing. They're dusting off the old playbook that they started in the 90s when they were doing things like Waco, Ruby Ridge, et cetera, when they decided to make Americans the terrorists. Like, I said this like the day before January 6th. I can't believe it. I was on some podcast. Actually, I was on, with Josh LaCash. And I said, like, the only thing about me and my friends hollering so hard about, like, get out of Afghanistan, like, no more pointless wars, like, blah, 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 is I was like, what are they gonna do with all that money, power, and Raytheon influence? And I'm like, oh gosh, they're gonna turn it inwards, aren't they?
And this is
they
exactly
did.
what happened.
And that's what they're gonna do. And they're gonna keep making this domestic terrorist idea of anyone who owns a gun, of any ex-soldier, of a veteran, or of anybody who's ever sought medical treatment for the horrible things that we've put these people through in foreign lands, all of this stuff, everyone is going to be considered a potential, if you go to a political rally, you're going to be considered an American potential domestic terrorist. And we are absolutely all at risk of that. I mean, it's insane.
The other thing that, so I wish that, like when you have your phone and when the new operating system comes out, you just kind of wake up and there's a new, your phone, oh, we updated your operating system, it just comes out. I wish that I could take the conservative movement sometimes and just push a new operating system out. Because this, and I say that with love, And I've been coming to CPACs, I've been coming to CPAC since Andrew Breitbart was on this stage, okay? Right, I remember him at the Omni Showroom with the tri-corner hat and the bullhorn screaming at Antifa, and I was standing up there, and I was just, you know, one of the little hobbits back then, and it's this mindset, and Andrew had this, where you have to go on offense. You have to actually confront these people. You have to take the fight to them. And I'm sick of thank you, but I'm sick of the whining and the crybaby act, and oh, they beat us, and oh, the media is lying about Trump, and oh, they're the hypocrisy, the double standard.
Imagine if it happened on the other side.
Imagine if it happened on the other side. We know they're going to do this. We know they're going to act like this. So this week, I made a deep fake of Joe Biden that got a little bit of attention. Newsweek, Snopes, USA Today, they're very, very upset with me because what I did was I kind of dialed the calendar forward about a year, and I had Biden coming up and saying, in order to meet Russia's illegal occupation of Ukraine and China's blockade of Taiwan, I am now instituting the Selective Service Act. Anyone who turns 20 years old as of calendar year 2023, male, female, or other,
yeah,
will now be required to register for service with the United States military. And people lost their minds because I said where they're going, and I showed everyone. And so people were saying, well, how, you know, and I had people on the right who said, how could you do that? Why would you make something like this? And they said, and I said, first of all, we're trying to prevent World War III, okay? We're trying to prevent the military industrial complex and Joe Biden from doing this. But second of all, this is my best response, they said, well, could you imagine if someone did that to Trump? I said, oh, really?
You mean the media
You mean if the media might
Trump?
lie about Donald Trump? Oh, no. Oh, no. But this is what I'm saying is that conservatives have to stop being scared of the Washington Post writing you up, CNN writing you up, Jake Tapper writing you up, Snopes, Newsweek, Wikipedia, Google. Screw all of them. They're going to do what they're going to do, but they have no power unless you give it to them.
I said
they
that
have
too.
No power.
I had this is the last of me, and then the two people who actually know what they're talking about should jump in. But the one thing I was able to do is there was an opportunity that was for some reason given to me. Somebody irresponsibly handed me access to the incoming freshmen to Congress. And joyously, I told them, the first thing you need to do is look at yourself in the mirror every day and call yourself a Nazi. Because you got to get used to hearing it, because that's what the press is going to say to you. So you better be used to like letting it roll off your back like nothing, because that's what they're going to do to you. They're going to, whatever fits you. It may not be that. You know, they tend to avoid calling Jews Nazis, so I managed to avoid that.
This is what Breitbart said, though. They're going to call you a Nazi. They're going to call you the next Timothy McVeigh.
They're going to call you everything. So get used to it, and then guess what? You're immune to the press. Yeah. Isn't it amazing? They just disappear.
So you're right. Look, the media is, we're up here talking about the deep state, the administrative state. There is no deep state without the fake news mafia.
Yes.
None whatsoever.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
And that is the reason, in order to defeat one, you have to take on the other, which is what these folks have been talking about so brilliantly. But this one's going to sting. Check it out. Do you know who helped rig the last two presidential election cycles and a congressional election cycle? The deep state with their friends in big tech. Yeah, it does sting. I know a lot of people are on all those platforms. But if you come up to me and ask me what you can do to help defeat the deep state and ensure election integrity, how about we stop giving Zuckerberg our attention and our money? How about we turn off not just the CNNs of the world, but other news organizations who aren't reporting on America First values because they don't believe in Donald J. Trump? This is your mission. The deep state in the media cannot exist if you don't turn them on. And they're right. You guys, everyone on this stage has been called some of the nastiest things on God's green earth.
Mostly by Amanda.
Yeah, mostly by Amanda. When I was running Russiagate, Adam Schiff, after he leaked to the media, he called me a genocidal dictator. Literally. Which is hilarious.
That's
because
awesome.
I'm the son of a guy who actually fled a genocidal dictator.
But you're kind.
But at that point, what they were saying is, that's right. And yeah, should it happen in America? No. Is it fun? Of course not. But if we don't band together against the media that is the bigger component of the deep state. It doesn't matter who the next president is and what personnel we put in. So the biggest lesson I can tell you guys is unless you band together and take on the big techs of the world, who literally rigged the election in favor of Joe Biden with the Hunter Biden laptop, as we all know, that's exhibit number 1. If you agree with any of that, then you have to make lifestyle choices for you and your family that advance the narrative that we're talking about up here today.
Amen.
Ready for me to get close to getting us thrown off?
Julie.
And the voting machines.
So, not all the solutions come out of Washington. If we wait for that, that's a mistake. In terms of what's happening with the DOJ and FBI related to January 6th or any political protesters, governors and attorney generals have a role as well. I would point to the lawsuit filed by Eric Schmidt, who's now in the Senate, thank God, the Missouri Attorney General, and Jeff Landry, the Attorney General of Louisiana. They filed a brilliant lawsuit against the administration based on the violation of their constituents' First Amendment rights. And what they revealed really helped bolster the Twitter files because they forced Elvis Chan, how can I forget that name? Elvis Chan, who is basically a big tech advocate operative in the FBI's San Francisco field office, forced him, deposed him, and what he revealed really confirmed this collusion. Anyway, the lawsuit is genius. Republican governors, especially in states like Florida and Texas, who have the highest number of January 6 defendants, and Republican attorney generals can file similar suits, not just violation of 1A, Fourth Amendment rights, Sixth Amendment rights, Eighth Amendment rights. I mean, it's right there. So they have a role as well. So I would push you to also ask your governors, attorney generals, state legislatures. You have an oath of office. You are not subservient to the federal government. It's inimical to how our whole system is set up. So take your role, defend your constituents, take on the deep state yourself. And I think that that is a role that local, or at least state officials can play as well.
Just to ping off what you said about January 6th and what Cash was saying, when you see somebody in the movement or someone in your personal life, if someone's going in front of a school board and they're getting smeared, if someone is they're going after James O'Keefe now, if they're going after Stephen K. Bannon, they do every other week, Don Jr., whoever it is, go and support them.
Yeah.
Go and say, and that point, that's the time when when you see somebody walking to the fire, always support them. And I will say this, I don't know if she's here today, but something you can do while you're here at CPAC, I happened to run into her yesterday very briefly, and then I lost her, but I think she's walking around still. And Julie, you would know better than me, but Ashley Babbitt's mom is here at CPAC.
She's right there, Jack.
She's here?
She's right there.
And and if you happen to run into her and she's into it, come on. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
She knows more than any of us
Right.
what you can stand to lose in this.
Right.
Yes.
And if she'll have it, I would say just give her a hug. Just give her a hug. And ask how you can help.
And if I can say really quick, and I talked to Mickey in 2021, when I saw what the media, the reaction by the Democrats to what happened with Ashley, I think that was the first realization of the pure evil that we're up against.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is contemptible, despicable, but on the flip side, the support that has been offered to Mickey and her family and other people.
The tragedy is, as horrific as that was, it wasn't the only tragedy of that day.
That's right.
Yeah.
The narrative by the media was we were the insurrectionists because we stood up for due process and our conservative values when innocent people were actually being killed by law enforcement, by instigators in the undercover agent community and whatnot. And that'll all come out.
Yeah.
But I agree, the best place to leave it for me is there are many ways to help these folks. Whistleblowers, these tremendous families. We started a little movement called fightwithcash.com, and we've literally last year gave away $100,000 to active duty service members, whistleblowers, Jan 6 families, and we're going to keep going. I'm not saying you got to go there. I'm just saying if we can do it a little bit at a time. This year we want to give away $1 million. Come check us out. We are looking to help wherever we can, but the whole point is we're doing it together. It's not a one-man show. And that's how we help people like Ashley and her family and y'all here today. So these guys are some of the toughest people I have ever seen come out of DC. So to be on a stage with them is an absolute blessing.
Thanks, Cash. You too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think, as I agree 100%, we all need to support the people that get besmirched by the media, need to support the people that have, and especially because, as you will see, there are defamation lawsuits that are about to start dropping, that have started dropping, that
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Daniel Bostic,
Daniel Bostic.
who are going to actually be taking these media organizations to task and are going to win because they are being defamed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is do that. Don't just sit there and accept it. Use use the power at your hands, which is the tiny little bit of the legal system we have left, and use it.
We are just about out of time, and I think I'll end on this note. There's one man who's going to be speaking on this stage tomorrow afternoon who's been defamed, smeared, lied about, attacked, investigated, and prosecuted more than every single one of us combined.
Yeah.
And I say, if this swamp and this regime hates him that much, it's because he's the only man actually standing up and fighting them.
And he's going to be our 47th president of the United States.
45, 47.
God bless all of
Thank
you.
you,
God bless
guys.
America.
Thank you.
God bless CPAC. Thank you.